Dan Frishberg, Jordan Kimmel, Don Schreiber with me talking banks already. Here's the fundamental problem. Remember, again, we lent all this money, we packaged it and bundled in all these little things. The ratings agencies called it AAA. We sold it to hedge funds and banks. We insured it. We didn't keep any money to insure it. And now we got a big pile of garbage sitting in our banks. And as a result, nothing is happening except for the American taxpayer is funneling money into those banks in an effort to try to keep them alive long enough that the bad asset that was created in combination by the bankers and then individuals with all these crazy loans be dealt with. That's the conversation we're having, which is how do you deal with this big stinking pile of you-know-what that sits squarely in the middle of the American financial system? You think you've got an idea?
I do, and I think Obama has an idea too. That's the important part.
Sure,
My idea is not as good.
Sure.
But you see, all that garbage you're talking about,
yes.
most of it is still paying interest,
right.
Still in effect. It's garbage because it doesn't have a set price.
And I just want to stop there because again, we know it may not be worth $1, but right now because there's
That's
no market,
right.
everything's being priced at zero.
I know that,
and the answer is somewhere in between.
But what if I paid 50 cents for it and I'm still up on it, but I'm not allowed to use it on my balance sheet and you're putting me out of business?
Right.
Supposing the guy next door to your house couldn't sell his house,
right.
So the bank called you up and said, we've decided your house is worth zero because his house is worth zero.
Right.
We're calling your loan, and if you can't pay in a month,
and it's self-perpetuating madness. It's a structural
exactly.
insanity.
And your house isn't worth zero.
Right.
His house isn't worth zero.
And now we just got a moronic system with a bad situation getting worse.
With a Treasury Secretary who made the mistake and is now covering up because if he fixed it, then you would say, well, why didn't you do this 6 months ago?
Right.
Obama has cover to fix this. He didn't do it.
So the criticism, Don, and I'll get to you 1 second, Jordan, of the accounting change is if we allow the people that were in charge of these banks to go hocus pocus again and try and decide what these things are worth without a market, we're now completely vulnerable to the judgment of the same people that created the mess.
Absolutely. But we're not going to fix this problem until we actually are able to set a price on these assets that are not worthless, that we're still writing off and destroying capital in the system. The taxpayer's got to flood the banks with money. It doesn't make any sense to me.
But here's the problem, Jordan, and I feel like I swear I had this conversation in October before the TARP. Wasn't the TARP supposed to create prices in markets for these assets? The problem is so many of these assets are custom. They're not apples to apples, oranges to oranges. How do I create any sort of price or market? I'm going to get Jordan in here with something that does not have that mine is not the same as yours.
The point is there is collateral behind these. The thing is, too many of them were sold. They were all leveraged up. They were margined up through the wazoo. So what I've said all along, though, this was Wall Street's problem, not Main Street's problem. Somehow it's spilled into Main Street. There are companies out there with cash flow out there. You can't look at these balance sheets.
You're talking now from an investor perspective.
No, but what I'm saying is you don't know what's off the balance sheets.
Right.
So I just say that there's more to the world than just the banks. The whole focus on the banks make us believe that this economy is for nothing, that no one's getting up, no one's going to work. There's a real economy under the bank economy. That's my main message there.
Yeah, but the problem is that the banks can't lend money right now because they're so worried about this stupid
the
accounting.
pile of crap, right.
Well, it's just a dumb accounting problem that looks like a pile of crap.
Yeah.
It's a pile of gold with dumb people administering it, making it look like crap, and that's what the problem is. And every single person behind the scene, I have like 9 figures of those bonds. They're paying interest. They're doing fine.
So you own
I own tons of it, but I didn't borrow money to get it.
10 million plus in those in your portfolio.
100 million plus.
And plus.
That's right. But I didn't borrow money to get it. Absolutely, and nobody minds
As long as you're not margined there, you can sit and let it all take place.
And that was Warren Buffett's point recently, which is a smart man making smart decisions can only get destroyed by leverage, which is what we've now seen happen.
Right.
We need to stop it, though. What we need to do is come up with a mechanism so that the banks get healthy. Can you imagine if they got an influx of 50% of paper value increase, what they'd be able to do on the lending side?
Right.
They would have tremendous lending power, and that's where we need to go.
Do you agree, Jordan, with his assertion that the reason that we haven't seen this yet is because Paulson and Bernanke and whoever screwed up in not doing this a while ago, and now they can't go back and do it, and now's a second window for Obama and Geithner to correct that? Do you agree with that?
I agree with part of that. It should have happened earlier, but what I don't agree with is that banks are not lending. Commercial paper.
Understood.
We're looking in the rearview mirror right now. Actually, you set the rates low enough.
But his point is still valid, that if you add more, If you add more equity value to those balance sheets by virtue of a more intelligent
can lend
accounting
more.
practice,
Then they can lend more.
Banks
No
are
question.
not lending. There's a little bit of lending going on. Sure, he can get a mortgage. You can buy a car.
Right.
Great. Well, you guys are the cream of the crop. But the problem.
Be
look
careful
at
now.
Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, they're selling their patents in fire
I
sales.
know what they're doing. I know.
Citibank just sold its
But
best
let's not even
asset.
argue the distress. There's some aspects where there's a lot of distress. There's
Sure.
some where there's not. I think
Obviously, if
everybody's
these
right.
guys could borrow money, they wouldn't be selling off
Sure,
these
but
assets.
ultimately, if there's an intelligent way to get the banks functioning, that makes things better for everybody else.
And I think they're going to do it.
Right. Do
Let's
you
stop
agree?
using the taxpayer money instead of solving the fundamental problem.
Which is an accounting and systemic issue.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily. Then you go to capital last as opposed to capital first.
You bet.
Right.